Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the final round of the Formula 3.5 season here at Phillip Island on Apex Racing TV. I am your host Aaron Smith, and in the commentary booth I am joined by Chaz Draco and Oliver Quoker, and of course we've got the lovely Samuli Kumo in the production booth as always. And this seems like an absolutely fitting way to end the season, as it has been for eons at this point. This track has been the final round of these cars for, I think, since the dawn of time, since this season actually started. And yeah, these cars around this track, it's absolutely gorgeous, wouldn't you say, Oliver?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the stunning scene in the background when you go through turn 1 and 2. So you always get this feeling in that, yeah, finally this season is over, but of course it's not over until it's over.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we don't really have a point system on iRacing in the same way that a normal championship would work. They, of course, take your best result, including iRacing of the week that you did, and then calculate the points that way. It's a very odd point system, but it's the way this game goes, so we don't have a traditional points system. And maybe we might have to come up with our own at some point if we do this next season. But at the moment, these guys just doing their final runs. This lap is very, very short, only about a minute and 15 seconds. And Eddie Zamborski, as always, seems to be on pole. And yeah, is always the man to beat in this series. But last week, couldn't quite get the win he wanted. But we'll see who can challenge him today, as everyone else just coming towards the finish line. We're on board with Mark Ponick as he finishes his lap round the final corner. Can he improve anymore? He's got 3 tenths to find if he wants to put it on pole, and couldn't quite improve on that lap time, and has to stay in 5th position for now. And Chaz, going into this final round, do you think anyone's going to be able to take that challenge for first place to Zamborski?
I think people are going to feel, let's just say, reinvigorated at the end of the season. A lot of people want to finish a championship on a high because it gives you a lot of confidence for following seasons. But I think at this point, everyone's just ready to wind it down now. We might see a couple of drivers playing it safe and not maybe going for certain moves. We might see others really sending it, though. But this circuit itself is a real great place to start out. Oh, sorry, to finish out, I should say. It's nearly 95 years old, but we'll get onto that in a little bit because now we've got the grid for this final round here, Aaron.
Yeah, and unsurprisingly, Eddie Zamborski sticking it on the front row. Alongside him is I'm Keeman, and on the second row of the grid is Dennis Furkheim and Yuki Shirakawa. You can expect him to blitz it off the grid as he usually does. Mark Ponnock and Miguel Crespo make up the third row of the grid. James Byrne and Jason Sieg in fourth row of the grid, and Javier Bonmati and Valero Tavares in the fifth row of the grid to round out your top 10. Then we have Denny Cornu in 11th, Cal Young in 12th, Eric Ryazimski in 13th, Jamie Byrne in 14th, and Luke Brooker in last place. Only 8 tenths off the lead, so we got quite a close grid here today. And only a minute to go then for all of these guys to round off the season, as Chaz was saying, on a high. And we might have varying strategies for these guys today. We might have some people maybe going a bit more conservative, some people thinking, it's the final round. Why not? Let's just absolutely gun it. Send it on the first lap and see if we make it on the other side. Just waiting for one more driver to get on the grid. There's always that one person we're waiting for, and it is Miguel Crespo in 6th place, as he is just lining up now as these drivers anxiously wait for those 5 iconic red lights to go out. These guys revving up those V8 engines, and it is lights out and away we go here in Australia. And it is a good start from Zamborski on pole. And of course, Yuki Shirakawa getting a good start. He's fighting for that third position. I'm Keeman still in second place, and Furkheim in third. Not really much jumbling at the top. But for the back rows, a lot of fighting going on, especially for Eric Rozimski, who has gained a few places there. He is side by side fighting for 11th place at the moment as they come towards the end of the first sector. It's pretty much as we started for the top 10.
Yeah, Zamborski making a great getaway. Oh, there's trouble in the middle, though, and Shirakawa's involved in it. Shirakawa off on the outside of the circuit. James Byrne's in there as well. Jason Siag's dropped down in all of that. There was a big and amazing start by Shirakawa. Upside down is Jason Siag. That's on the exit of the corner, so there must have been wheel-to-wheel contact as they tried to recover. But big shame that is to lose it so easily and so early on in the first round. But that's the thing, though. You come to a hard braking zone like that, Oliver, you know what these cars are like. Let's have a look at what happened. Easy to snatch a break here.
Yeah, definitely. We're almost with Jason Sieg now. Very late on the brakes, we see one car losing it already, and then, well,
I think
he just feels a big slap from behind, and then he's over.
I think there was 2 separate incidents there actually as well. Yeah. There was a car, I think maybe Dennis Furkheim losing the rear end on the brakes. It might have been. Yeah, actually, it might have been. Yeah, you're right. I think there was a car losing the rear end on the brakes, but then contact separately to that on the inside in avoidance as well. So quite the mess between some of them. I love this Keenan livery though, the 1995 Benetton on his car. It looks absolutely awesome. Not sure if you're seeing that actually. Yeah, it's white at there, and I've got Trading Paints running in my sim, so apologies. He's running a 1995 Benetton on my screen, and I love it, but unfortunately, tobacco branding, we can't run it. Anyway, Zamborski at the front here, Aaron. It's what we used to.
Hate to be an anorak, but it's actually the 1994 Benetton livery.
Oh yeah, the 95 one had the yellow side pods. That's my mistake.
The green one was the 94 car, but
it was.
Let's not get all nerdy on the broadcast today. Eddie Zamborski, of course, in first place as usual, but we're gonna take a little bit of a replay. We're not doing a replay, we're just on board with Denny Cornet and back to Eddie Zamborski, who remains firmly in the lead. Didn't really expect anything else from him, of course. And yeah, Zamborski at the front for the, well, I've lost count at this point how many times I've said that this season, last season, how many commentators before me have said that. It's sort of standard procedure at this point, but he's not pulling away quite yet. He's still got Keeman and Furkheim. If we get this battle for the top 3 all throughout the race, I'm here for it. We haven't really had this all season where the top 3 have been really close together. It's rather been spoiled. But I'm not complaining. If we get a good final round, Chaz, then yeah, I'm going to leave here a happy boy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we always love a busy racing cars like this. They're not easy to control at all. They're about 540 brake horsepower, I believe they are, but they barely weigh about 600 kilos either, so it's nearly 1,000 brake horsepower per ton. and the downforce to go with it is insane as well. They are almost sort of mid-2000s Formula 1 performance. They look quite similar as well. They just don't quite have the power that the Formula 1 cars had at the time. They make the same noise though, 3.5 litre V8s screaming way over 10,000 RPM, and that's what we all know and love. Great battle though for the top three at the minute. They're all within slipstreaming range of each other, and down here, Oliver, they are going to feel a massive pull, aren't they, down towards turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, and that's why it's so difficult on this track, because it's all about the gearing. I've had some laps myself this week, and I've always had the problem, do I run into the rev limiter or not? Because if you run into the rev limiter, you can gain a higher top speed in the end because you have more RPM, more torque. But then you don't have any room for slipstreaming. And that's, for example, a problem that Ian Kieman doesn't want to have right now. He wants to have the best slipstream effect possible to get by Eddie Zamborski, because, I mean, that would be an achievement, wouldn't it?
Absolutely would be, and that's the thing, you need to try and eke out every little bit that you can in cars like this, and they can be very fragile, can't they, Aaron, whether it comes to contact or just being on the limit or over it, or whether you're doing the setups as well. There's so many tiny things that can affect these cars.
Yeah, I think that's sort of just the nature of Formula cars, especially with these older ones on iRacing. They are just so incredibly fragile. And as Oliver was saying, you do really have to set up the car for, you know, what your plan is in the race. If you're someone like Zamborski, you maybe don't need that bonus slipstream at the top end, and maybe like Kieman, as you can hear, he is just on the top of that rev limiter and not really leaving much more space for any more speed. But I will have to say that I believe he is using DRS to keep up right now, so maybe the pace we're seeing isn't true, but further back, this is the battle for 5th, as Eric Wierzymski is trying to gain in on the action. He's down in P7, but has these two in front of him of Bonmati and Tavares. And Bonmati there trying to go for a move into turn 2, didn't quite work out, ran very, very wide, but didn't really lose too much time in the grand scheme of things, as we still got this battle for P10, which has been brewing pretty much since the start of the race between Luke Brooker at his home race and Denny Cornu. And yeah, these guys, I think Luke maybe has a little bit of the home advantage, but speaking of home advantages, Miguel Crespo up in 4th. We'll see what he can do from here on in. But Denny Cornu not giving this fight up just yet. Through this middle sector though, not really any overtaking opportunities as we now come into turn 10. It's a very tricky braking zone, a lot of locking that we've seen so far, but these guys getting through nice and clean as we head down onto the main straight. And of course, to finish a lap time, which should be around the 1:16 mark, and Denny Cornu, Chaz, surely going to go for that move.
Yeah, he pulls out quite early here to the left-hand side, but then he just hits this solid wall of air resistance and doesn't quite get the run that he would have wanted to get past Luke Brooker. Luke Brooker gaining 5 places from the start of this race, so he's having a good run so far. Denny Cornu looks slightly down the inside, doesn't go for it here at turn 2, has a little bit of a four-wheel slide there. These cars are a bit prone to that, you know, the back end does step out slightly and it floats a little bit into the corner, similar to how the Pro Mazda or Star Mazda used to do so. Obviously a much smaller car, but still the same traits. Top 3 still breaking away. Cornu puts the pressure on, looks down the inside. Nothing works there though. This is the thing though, isn't it, Oliver? Because it's so easy to make a mistake in this car. You are so on the limit. If you're the driver behind, you've just got to take your chances and put your nose down the inside, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course, but in addition to what I've said earlier, where on this track you run a very, relatively short safe gear, so you're basically, as we've seen on the onboard of Ian Kieman, you stay into the rev limiter halfway down the straight, so you have no real alternative to overtake, or no real possibility to overtake on the main straight, so you need to use every single possibility you get, as simple as that.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you know what it's like as well, Aaron, you know, in these battles it's so easy as the car in front to look in your mirrors, and it's so easy as the car behind to see an advantage or a potential gap when there actually isn't one.
Yeah, and especially for Kieman, gumming up the likes of Zamborski, he really does, as Oliver said, you have to take every opportunity you get. If you even get a whiff of Zamborski making a tiny mistake, and I mean tiny, like a tiny lockup going wide, it's a tiny bit, you need to take advantage of that. And Denny Cornu and Luke Brook are still battling out for P10. These two are being very fair and clean with each other right now. Denny going for a move into turn 6. On the exit of the corner, he gets the better exit, and Luke has just got to sit behind for now. Unless he wants to put the pressure on as we come up the hill into turn 9 now. It's a very long, fast left-hander this, and down the hill for turn 10. Again, one of the most tricky corners on the entire track, as you saw a little puff of smoke up ahead. And yeah, that corner is so easy to lock a brake into. And if you double lock up into that corner, you are... Yeah, you're getting sent into the wall as we now watch the battle continue on for 5th place. Bon Matty's still putting the pressure on Tavares. He's going to go for a move into turn 2. Not quite. Just likes to just get his nose there. Let Tavares know that he is still there. And just trying to pile that pressure on. But Chaz, realistically, where can Bon Matty try and get that overtake done? Or actually, is he going to get it over? Yeah, there. He's
just there.
Take the words right out of my mouth.
Well, one very simple word, there. That's where Javier Bon Matty wants to make his moves, down the inside into the hairpin. And that's the thing, it may not be a massive long straight leading into that. You know, you do have a really long curve into that hairpin, but it gives you a good chance to build up some speed, carry that speed by letting the car run out wide, and then slam it on the brakes down your inside. As long as you make your intentions clear very early on, your rival is going to see that you're coming down the inside, and you know, they'll give them the space out of pure respect. The racing that we see in this championship is so respectful. These guys know how this car behaves, they know how they should drive it, and it is an absolute masterpiece to look at and listen to. James Byrne's going to say, you want to see a masterpiece, look at this. And it's not perfect though, he's right behind Virajimski as they get on to the start-finish straight. Usually you want a bit more of a slingshot, but he seems to have decent straight line speed. We've actually seen a couple of the cars running different downforce packages tonight. There's one or two of them that have got a slightly lower rear wing, which is cool to see rendered on the cars. But it looks at the moment like a lot of these wings here, Oliver, they seem to be in the high downforce setting, don't they?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've been running with Dennis Forjan this week, and we've tried many different settings just to see, okay, what's working, what's not working. And Phillip Island seems to be a very weird track where you can run a lot of different configurations, and there's no real one that sticks out too much. So that's what excites me as a driver, because there are so many different factors that come into play. And also it helps racing because you have different style of cars or setups racing against each other.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see. And I suppose at the end of the day, you know, Aaron, you and I have both spoken about fixed setup racing before and how exciting that can be, because it's all down to the driver. But if a driver has a preferred style of setup, or they work better with a loose car and they're a bit more talented in terms of controlling it, or they want to have a race where, you know, they spend the whole time wrangling a car rather than just caressing it around the circuit, it can lead to some interesting variation in lap times and even how the car behaves over the course of a race, because they're not short races here. 28 laps at Phillip Island, still well over half an hour. You know, tyres can get affected, fuel weight can come into effect there as well. It's certainly an interesting thing to see how it develops over the course of a run.
Yeah, and there's always been that debate over fixed and open setups in especially iRacing, whether it does make it more fair or not.
Ooh.
And these guys still battling it out for 5th place. I think this is maybe going to be the battle to watch out for this whole race, all the way down from 5th to around 9th place. It is super close. Only about 3 seconds separate these guys. And yeah, through this middle sector, not really an opportunity to overtake unless you really do send it into turn 10, turn 9. You just got to keep it as close as you can to the car in front. But yeah, this downhill braking really is a challenge, especially in these cars. But all these guys managing to perfect it this time out, and James Byrne making good progress at the moment, still just about where he started in 7th place. And yeah, the driver behind Eric Wierzymski, though, is our biggest mover of the grid today, up 5 places from where he started, and I'm sure that he's not done quite yet. He is starting to slip back a little bit from these guys, but is Tavares going to go for a move into turn 2? Not quite. I don't think turn 2 is actually a very good overtaking opportunity at all, as it is quite a fast corner. But as we saw a few laps ago, what Bon Matty did in turn 4 is Tavares going to do that same move. He's going to go to the inside, but I don't think he was quite as good on the brakes as he wanted. And Bonmati did leave him the room, but yeah, Chaz, I'm not sure between these guys, you know, who's going to come out on top. They all seem to be relatively the same speed. And yeah, it's so enticing to watch.
I think, again, it comes down to how the car and the driver even develops over the course of the race. You know, it's whatever they've got left in the tank by the time it comes to the later stages. Some of the drivers at this point will subscribe themselves to the fact that the field is going to get spread out. They might not be able to get away from people if they eventually get in front of them. You know, if Tavares was to overtake Bonmati now on this following lap, he would then probably get slipstreamed again, as he's about to do to Bonmati now. We stay on board, though, with James Byrne as he flies up behind him down the start-finish straight. Of course, car in front gets slipstream as well. They bobble around a little bit down the not quite even surface here. I think you're right, though. Turn 2 is definitely not a prime overtaking opportunity. The southern loop is really difficult. It goes over the crest of a hill, and if you have to run a different line, because let's face it, there's about 9 of them around here, if you have to run over a different line slightly, over a crest, and adjust your inputs and change your inputs based on what's going on and adapt like that, it can be a nightmare to try and get an overtaking manoeuvre done. And I mean, Oliver, you know this car the best out of the three of us. This is not really a car where you want to start changing your racing lines halfway through a race, is it? Because it'll really bite you.
No, definitely not. I mean, especially on this track, you want to run as much oversteer as you can get away with. If you just alter your line slightly throughout the race with worn tires and different amounts of fuel, plus the dirty air that you get from the car in front, it can literally kill your race. You will just spin and you will not know what happened until it's too late.
Looks like somebody snatched a break there as well at the bottom of the hill. I believe that may have been Miguel Crespo. He's only 2 seconds ahead of this battle. It's not too far up the road as the battle for the lead has continued on as well. Keeman all over the back of Samborski now, the two of them glued together. But if I'm honest with you, Aaron, I think Keeman at this point, he's playing it clever, isn't he? He's just sitting behind Samborski, waiting for the golden opportunity. We started the CDM Formula 1 World Championship here and had a 0.000 of a second finish across the line between the two race winners in the very first race, because just making the most out of that slipstream out of the final corner is all you need to do to take a race win. As side by side now, Brooker and Ponick.
Yeah, Brooker just starting to slip back a tiny bit. He was, of course, battling with Cornu for 10th place, but it's just starting to fall to the bottom end of the grid. As that's Byrne overtaking Tavares. He's on a pursuit. Looks like he made the move into turn 4. Tavares seems to have been the worst of driver there. Didn't really get the exit he wanted, and never mind, Byrne absolutely muddled turn 6 up and got a really poor exit and has allowed Tavares back into that fight. And I think Byrne may be not too pleased with himself that he made that mistake, but of course, still a long way to go in this race. We're not even halfway through yet. Nearly there though, lap 13 of 28. I think the leaders are just about to come over the line at some point to start lap 14. There you go, taking over. Thank you, Zamborski, for reading my mind. Keeman still pulling on the pressure. But like we said at the start of this broadcast, Chaz, there's really not much in at this track, as also Oliver mentioned before the broadcast started, that these guys have been running relatively the same setup for years now, because the car really hasn't changed at all. And yeah, that's why we get such close racing on such a small circuit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when the car stays the same for so long and there's no major updates to it, it actually makes the racing even better technically, because people have got longer to work with the same model, the same components, same everything. They don't need to sort of worry about what might be different and adapt their driving style. Everybody's got to this level now where we're in that final sort of 5% at the top of the performance that you can get out of this car, and people have had a long while to perfect it. And that's what makes it great, because there is so little in it. I mean, when we saw the qualifying times earlier, you realise just how close they all do get together. And even now, we've got purple sectors coming in. Keeman did a purple sector 3 on that last lap. James Byrne did a purple sector 1. Now, those guys will be getting slipstream in that final and first sector, obviously, because they cross the line either side of where those sectors are. Still, the fact that they can then convert that into purple sectors after, 15 laps of a race, it still shows you that you never know when the ultimate pace is going to come in an event like this.
No, definitely not. And, you know, I'm still holding it out for if Keeman actually, you know, what's his game plan here? You know, is he just going to sit behind Zamborski until the very end, or is he just going to wait until an opportunity arises, is he maybe saving a bit of fuel? Is he maybe saving those tyres? We just don't know, but someone who definitely isn't saving tyres now is James Byrne as he's off into the gravel trap. I believe that's on the exit of turn 2,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. I'm not quite sure what happened there. I think maybe got side by side with someone and just got a bit of a nudge too much, or maybe just understeered off. But now is down in the battle for 10th. His race isn't over yet, though. But yeah, that's rather damaged his hopes of finishing inside the top 10. But he's still got an opportunity. We're going to get a replay. He was actually by himself. So my guess is that he understeered off. Oh no, just too much mustard on the exit.
Yeah, he's going to feel the burn from that one, isn't he, Oliver? That's one of those easy to do moments, though. But the thing is with this car, it doesn't spin around rapidly, does it? It sort of slowly gives you the warning, but it's almost half impossible to save, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. As you said earlier with the example of the Pro Master, these cars have actually a very wide limit, I would call it.
Yeah.
You can feel when, as you said, when the car gets sideways, you have a certain amount of time where you can react, but if you're too late, then it bites you completely, and that's what happened to James. But even on this track, when you have these fast sweeping corners, it's very, very difficult to catch a slide like this.
It really is, and I mean, look how close they're running to the white line on the exit now, Aaron, as well. They're not leaving an inch of this circuit unturned. Great 5-car battle here, though. Cornu, Byrne, then Ponick, Byrne, and Brooker as well. We've got James Byrne and Jamie Byrne. I've only just noticed that. That's really bad of me, but I've only just noticed that we've got effectively 2 James Byrnes in the race. Not sure if they are relatives or not. They're running the same livery as well. Which, yeah, that is fantastic stuff. Apologies, guys, for not noticing that sooner. One of them's got Byrne in red on the rear wing. One's got it in yellow, I believe. One's running red wheels and yellow wheels. That's really cool to see, though. Really like that.
Yeah, that's one of the easier ways to tell them apart. Apart from their name, obviously, it's not too dissimilar. But yeah, I mean, this car, although it's old, I would say it is one of the more fun cars to drive on this service. And I know some people might disagree with me on that, but I don't care. This car is fun to drive. It's difficult and challenging, but that's oddly why I like it. But James Byrne at the moment not finding it too difficult after that earlier spin. Got his groove back on and has slipped himself into P9 as he's on a little bit of a chance. Let's see what he can do from here on in. We've got about 12 laps remaining in this race. And yeah, as you were saying last lap, they're right on the edge of the track, but that's what you've got to do at the top level of any series. And of course, we are in top split, so these guys using every little piece of the track that they can to gain an advantage. And well, that's what you got to do at the top level, as everybody knows. And Miguel Crespo, though, going well in his home race up in P4, although Bon Massey wants to ruin his day by overtaking him, as I must say Bon Massey has put on an impressive performance so far, up 4 places. But Chaz, can he make it 5?
Well, he's just done his personal best lap of the race on the previous lap as well, a 1:16.5. He was half a second quicker than Crespo. The slipstream is going to help that, but let's not forget Bon Massey was in the battle further back earlier on with Tavares and even Cal Young. He moves out to the right-hand side down the start-finish straight. He's going to swoop through on the inside of turn 1, but I would maybe put a bit of money on Crespo trying to come back down the inside or put a bit of pressure on turn 2. No, he's conceded for now. He knows that he can just take his time, sit behind Bon Massey and give him the same treatment. Let's just face it, he knows that Bon Massey has come up from behind by a good few tenths a lap. He knows that he could maybe use him as a bit of a pace booster to go forward and try and catch Furkheim in front, who is still sitting in 3rd place. The gap at the moment, though, Oliver, it's about 6 seconds, but it can still change very quickly in a race like this, can't it? Because when you're on the limit and you're really driving the hell out of this car, as Aaron said, it's great fun and it's very rewarding, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As you guys mentioned earlier, this car is a lot of fun. I mean, that's why I've driven it for many, many years. And as you said as well, it's this sort of like 2000s Formula One car vibe.
Yeah.
With the looks, with the sounds, with the driving physics. It feels not like alien or not that agile. You can wrestle the car a little bit without it biting you too much. So you can get a lot of pace out of this car just by driving the hell out of it. without getting too many problems in terms of tire wear or tire temperature problems.
I think one of the best descriptions of this car that I've ever heard is actually that it's like an early 2000s Formula One car that's been just turned down a few notches for a track day. Like somebody privately owns it and they don't want to completely run it to its maximum capacity, you know, and it's still absolutely ludicrously fast. The most impressive thing about this car is how it stops. You know, if you're not locking up the brakes, it's like hitting a tree. It's really amazing how quickly this car stops. And it can catch you off guard. You know, you think, oh, God, I need to get braking now, really stop for this corner. And you can find yourself crawling over an apex because you've not slammed on enough, or you have slammed on too much, sorry. Denny Cornu still battling away with James Byrne, though. James hasn't been able to disappear off up the road, runs a little bit wide through the left-hander here, Aaron. They're certainly handing it to each other as they go through turns 7 and 8 up to Lukey Heights. Is it an overtaking opportunity, do you think, or will Cornu just sit behind?
I think the smart thing for Cornu to be doing right now is just to sit behind, as he is doing, as he's got the longest run of human existence, all the way from turn 11 all the way down to turn 2, basically. All the way flat out. This corner is easily flat in these cars. And good fun, of course, hitting nearly the rev limiter up to 6th gear, hitting about 118 miles an hour down this straight, nearly. And yeah, already nearly the top of the rev limiter. And I think he's not quite got the straight line speed to keep up with Byrne, even in the slipstream. And I think this is where Cornu has the advantage a little bit through the corners, as Byrne has just pulled away a little bit too much for Cornu to go for a move into turn 4. Or is he going to prove me wrong and absolutely send it? No, he's not, but he's put Byrne under enough pressure that he did make a mistake, but not enough to completely unsettle the car, and he's just going to keep ahead in 9th place. And we know Byrne's got the pace. He was fighting for 7th place, so surely he must be able to pull away from these guys, as they are just a little bit slower than that mid-pack. And yeah, also at the top, Keeman just starting to pull away. Excuse me, Zamborski starting to pull away there. Goes 0.2 of a second quicker and sets a purple lap. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how many fastest laps the guy has in this car, but it's definitely at least in double or maybe even triple digits. And yeah, proving once again why he is the absolute king of this car. But these guys not going to give up the ghost just yet. Is Cornu going to pull alongside to go for a move into turn 1? No. I would say that is the smart decision to do. I think turn 4 seems to be the overtaking choice for all of these drivers. It seems to be the safest option. But as long as you don't do what Yuki Chirikawa did, Chaz, you should make it through the other side okay.
Absolutely. There's actually a bit of a trade going on between Samborski and Keeman, you know, with purple and green sectors coming from both in 1 and 3 on that previous lap. We also had Denny Cornu do a green personal best sector in sector 1 on that previous lap as well. But still, through the twisty stuff, James Byrne was actually quicker. He was 1/10 of a second quicker on the previous lap. This time round, he was 1/10 slower. So there's certain elements of the track where there's a bit of an imbalance, and these drivers are quicker than one another. Like we said before, it's all about the setup and what the drivers are comfortable with. Just to put it into context, Samborski's just crossed the line to start the next lap. That's how far ahead these guys are. But a purple purple lap in response from Keeman now certainly puts all of his chips on the table here, Oliver. We're getting towards the end of the race now. This is the time where you need to prove the point, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we have just like 5 to 6 laps remaining. And Keeman needs to barely hold on to Ed, because now he's actually getting into the dirty air. And into the risk of falling out of the slipstream. If that happens, he will have no chance of actually getting Ed anymore. But I think he will have enough pace to keep second place of Dennis.
Yeah, it's all about just being in it to win it at certain points like this. But still, I think we're just now going to wait and see what these lead pair do, because the driver in 3rd place, Dennis Furkheim, he's having a really good race. He's doing a smashing job, but he's a long way back from where these guys are. He's 6 seconds back. And then he's got another 4.5 over Javier Bonmati. So he just needs to keep up with the pace that he's on at the moment and not worry himself too much about what comes on at the end. There's actually a little battle developing between Valerio Fagundes Tavares and Cal Young as well for 6th and 7th. There is Tavares, and there is Young right behind him. So he's certainly not out of the woods yet, is Tavares. And I think it's another scenario here, Aaron, where maybe Young is just eyeing him up for the final lap and a final run out of the last corner. For me, that's a black and yellow car that looks way too much like a Minardi from the mid-90s. It looks lovely.
Yeah, I was about to say that as well. It really does give old Minardi vibes, but he's definitely a lot higher than Minardi ever were in the 90s.
I was going to say, he's
place.
actually in the race. He's made it past qualifying. You know.
Yeah, he didn't have to go through pre-qualifying at all, and definitely was inside the 107%, as the Minardis often probably weren't even inside the 110%, let alone 107. But Young rather been very quiet this race, and up 5 places, tied for most places gained with Eric behind him, and he might be able to make it 6 if he can just keep his cool and get past Tavares. But on those last few corners, just made a few mistakes and has just started to slip back a little bit. He's got to just focus up now. And oh god, something was stuck in my throat there. And yeah, Young's just got to try and make that slipstream work. And Oliver, if you're Young in this situation and you're nearly at the end of the race with tyres going off, screaming at you, you know, what options do you have? Do you push like hell, or do you maybe try and sit back and see what the driver in front does?
I think sitting back is not an option anymore because you don't have that many laps to go. You need to close the gap to the car in front to actually get into a chance of overtaking him into turn 4, because I think that's the only real overtaking spot, if the pace is close enough to the guy that you're battling with. And B, well, to be honest, the only chance is that he might have more DRS left than Tavares, because yes, slipstream is quite powerful, but it's so close in this series that you need this extra little bit of help of the DRS to get by another driver, because we have seen previously where guys are battling each other on the start-finish straight and they go through turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3 side by side. So once you're alongside another car, that's the relatively easy part, but to actually get by, that's the more difficult part, and I think that's where the DRS should really help.
Yeah, I think the famous saying that comes to mind, of course, is catching up is one thing, overtaking is another.
Yeah.
And definitely in this series, that definitely echoes a lot. And yeah, I really do wish we could see how many DRS activations everyone has left. That would really help with us, so we don't have to keep guessing. And it also doesn't help that we can barely see when people are using DRS. It is a tiny, tiny gap that you can maybe fit your hand through. As we can definitely tell these guys aren't using DRS. Jamie Byrne trying to move himself up into 11th place. Don't think Bonick fought that one too much. Relatively smart decision from him as we now head into turn 2. Jamie Byrne up another place, up 3 places overall in this race, where he started from in 14th place. So decent race from him so far. I think James is having a slightly better race though, as well, depends how you see it. Of course, he made that mistake earlier in the race, but in terms of on-track position, of course, he is a little bit further ahead, but he's still got Denny Cornu behind him, looming in his mirrors. And Chaz, you know, I mean, me and you have relative experience with racing. Of course, you have a lot more commentary experience than I do, but how really do you cope with the stress of another car looming in your mirrors?
It's very difficult to. That's the short answer, really. It depends how aggressive they are. If you know that you're in a situation where, I mean, say there was somebody 2 seconds up the road from these guys that they could definitely catch before the end of the race. If you were Denny Cornu now and you communicated the fact that you were going to just sit behind James Byrne, work with him and move forward, then it's a lot more easy to deal with, because you can cross that bridge when you get to it. If you do catch the other car up and they try and take advantage of the situation, that's when you can really fall into a big pit of stress and worry about them way too much. Right now, though, you can see that Cornu is just sitting there. He's waiting for that slipstream out the final corner to overtake Byrne across the line. You could say it's a bit premeditated and a bit sort of predetermined how it's going to finish, but that's just clever racing at the end of the day. You know, they're not all here to entertain us. They're here to get a decent result out of the race. This is Tavares and Cal Young still together. Crespo isn't too far up the road either, so they could maybe work together and try and catch up with him, but I just don't think it's enough at this stage. But having someone fill your mirrors when they're trying to throw it down the inside at every possible opportunity and they're being maybe overly aggressive, sometimes you just let them go. Let them go, and if they're going to carry on with that over-aggressiveness and push a little bit too hard, they might ruin their own race. And speaking of, Tavares snatches a break there, still under pressure from Young. And, well, this is the exact scenario we've just described coming to life here, Aaron, as he's putting pressure on. Tavares makes a mistake, runs wide, but look, doesn't give him big slipstream down the straight. That could be imperative.
And I also could just about see that Cao Young was using DRS there, I believe, as you're going to see into turn 1. That gap open up a little bit, yeah. And smart decision there from Young. He had a little bit of DRS left. And it's not quite over yet, as that was a little bit of contact for Tavares. I think he's just about gotten away with it in this car. That is dangerous, getting that close to another car. But yeah, got away with it just about. And yeah, Cao Young puts himself up into 6th place and is now already a second ahead. But Zamborski, of course, been relatively quiet these last few laps. Just started to put the pedal down a little bit and is setting fastest lap after fastest lap on that last lap. Was 0.4 of a second quicker than Keeman. And Oliver, you've raced with Zamborski. How good is he really on track?
Well, if you really think about it, I haven't raced against him because he was always half a lap in front of me. But yeah, I mean, Eddie is really, really fast and really, really competitive. I mean, the only real opponent that he ever had in this series, I think, was James Pinsker. But it was nice to see that Ivan Keeman was actually able to challenge him a little bit, although it didn't came to fruition that he actually overtook him. But yeah, I mean, Ed did an immense job this throughout the whole scene, throughout the whole years. I mean, he's the benchmark in this series, and there's a reason behind it. He's done an incredible job as usual.
Yeah, I'm gonna really have to agree with you there. He puts on good performance after good performance, and when we see him blunder, it really does come as a shock. It's kind of like seeing the likes of Verstappen or Hamilton or Schumacher make those kind of mistakes. It really does feel strange when they have a bad race. It's like, it feels like it's never going to happen, and then it does, and you're just left absolutely flabbergasted. But no, we're not going to feel funny after this race, as yeah, he's put on an absolutely impressive performance worthy of a champion as he comes across the line for the 1,000,000th time to win the final round of the season at Phillip Island from 4.5 seconds ahead of Ivan Keeman. Impressive performance from him to keep up at the start of the race, but just fell off towards the end. Furkheim third, rounds off the podium. Bonmati seems to come home in 4th, and the rest of the grid relatively seems to be how it's going to finish, unless someone spins off, or there's a last lap overtake between maybe Cornu or Byrne on Ponick, as that battle is getting very, very close. But yeah, Byrne comes across the line to round it out, and yep, Ponick just about finishes ahead of Byrne, only a 10th and a bit. That was a really close finish between those two. And yeah, Chaz, as you said earlier on, finishes here can get really, really close.
They definitely can. I mean, there was even a purple final sector there from James Byrne. Sorry, apologies, it was sector 1 on that final lap. He actually did a purple sector. But what you were saying before about Zamborski, he's an absolute star. You know, he spearheads a lot of the community efforts here on iRacing for this wonderful car and this wonderful group of people that continue to race it and give it the support that it needs. And it's the fact that, you know, he's definitely, with no disrespect to any of the others, he's definitely the fastest guy out there in this car. And it's great to see that, you know, he's not this sort of infamous bloke like this villain that they all sort of despise because he's so fast. They've got an amazing amount of respect for him, and he's great and gives back to the community as well. He's got the all-round package as Zamborski, and he's not too bad at doing burnouts either, bad look of it. But another very solid performance tonight. Great consistency all season, and he really does deserve it.
Yeah, I do think if we had, you know, a championship of this properly, he would have won it a good few rounds ago. I think he really is top dog in this series, and only really got beaten on pace last round. And maybe next season, if we do get to see more of this series, we would love to see more people taking that challenge to Eddie Zamborski. But yeah, unfortunately tonight, well, for him, obviously, not unfortunately, got a fairly easy win in first place for Eddie Zamborski, the ad blocker driver, coming across the line to take another win in this series. I'm Keeman in second place, just a little bit too much to keep up with Zamborski today. Furkheim in third, rounding off your podium. Bon Matti in fifth. Crespo in his home race, the best Aussie today in fifth. And Cal Young in sixth, up 6 places, our best mover of the grid today. Well done to him. Falara Tavares in 7th place, Eric Warzimski in 8th, James Byrne in 9th, and Denny Cornu rounds out your top 10. Mark Ponick in 11th, Jamie Byrne in 12th, Luke Brooker 13th, and then your 2 non-finishers of Yuki Shirakawa and Jason Sieg. Only 13 finishers today, relatively small grid, but yet they all finished really, really close to each other, and that's the beauty of this circuit. It always provides good racing. And yeah, unsurprisingly, we had a really, really good race, especially for those mid positions. And yeah, really, really good way to round off the season, in my opinion. And excuse me, we've got a few people waiting for an interview, and I'm going to do the honors, of course, by interviewing the main man, Eddie Zamborski himself. And Eddie, how do you feel after taking your 1 millionth win of this series?
I was just happy not to have any incidents. It was, I don't know if you mentioned it on the broadcast, but holy wind. I mean, every lap was like trying to figure out the track again. I mean, I'm not trying to sound whiny or complaining, but it wasn't easy, especially when you're out front. You know the guys behind are just getting 4/10 for free, basically. So, you know, I'm pushing as hard as I can, and them guys are just cruising. Like, yeah, I'll get them in the straightaway anyways. But no, it was a good race. I can't really complain. I did one earlier, didn't really had a, you know, 3 wide doesn't work, 3 into 1 doesn't work, so I was happy to avoid that, and it was a good season for me, so no complaints.
Yeah, I can't really blame you. It was a relatively straightforward win today, although at the start you had a little bit of pressure from I am Keeman at the start. Did you think that maybe he was going to put the pressure on maybe later in the race and challenge you for the win, or were you confident throughout the whole thing?
No, I absolutely thought he was going to put the pressure on. He was part of the 3 and the 1 that didn't fit in the last race. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying. You know, judging what I saw 2 hours ago, he 100% wanted to go. I asked him, you know, can you just give me 10 laps so we don't, you know, and then I don't know if I think he was trying to outfox me with the DRS, and I was trying to outfox him at the same time, because when you're that close on pace, it's going to come down to something like a DRS advantage or a mistake. That one lap about wrecked the car in front of him. So that I thought, I'm like, oh, I'm done right here. He's getting by. But luckily, I had just enough of a gap that he couldn't make a lunge. So to answer your question, I thought for sure he was going to send it at some point.
Well, it certainly looked like it at the start of the race, but I think, kind of looking back on it now, I think you just had the DRS advantage, and especially towards the end, we saw you using DRS to set those fastest laps in the end. And yeah, I think maybe he was just not quite quick enough to challenge you for today. But since it's the last season, have you got anything you'd like to say? Anyone you'd like to thank?
Well, you know, I got to thank everyone that helped us get here. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like fundraising is going that well. So I don't want to bore everyone. I mean, you've heard me thank everyone before. I think I'm going to put something on the forum maybe tomorrow with everyone that's got us here. So if you want to have a quick reference, I guess the most important is to thank the drivers. We've had our spats, our bickering, but I think on average, I don't think anyone would complain about our series. So as far as I'm concerned, we did our best and did a good job, and maybe at some point in the future, I don't know. You know, we'll see what happens.
Well, I certainly hope that we get to see more of this series. It has really been a lot of fun to commentate this season, but that was your race winner, Eddie Zamborski, here at Phillip Island. And Chaz, would you like the honour of interviewing our next man?
I'm all right. No, I'm joking. Yes, we will speak to next. Why don't we bring in Dennis Furkheim to have a quick chat, our 3rd place finisher in that one. Dennis, quite a lonely race for you, but a lot of the time, no news is good news in things like this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always good news to have a lone race. But yeah, first of all, congrats to Ed for the victory here and the victory of the championship. And also congrats to Keeman. They both had a very quick pace I couldn't follow. And after I was safe with P3, I said, okay, just let's go with the first couple of laps. I could follow them, but after the toe broke, I couldn't follow them anymore.
Well, that's it. I think the slipstream around here is very important. There's a massive start-finish straight, and even when you're coming down to the likes of turn 3, the right-hander, you have to really tuck up behind cars into there to make any sort of move. And it did seem, unfortunately, like once they broke away as a pair as well, it was all done. But what's this car like to drive around here? Because obviously we've had Oliver, very gratefully, we've had Oliver in the commentary box telling us just how amazing this machine is. But on a night like tonight, it just looks like an absolute joy to throw this car around here.
Yeah, I love this track. It's a great track. It's the kind of track it's built around a golf course. It's the ocean side, so it's beautiful to drive there. But it's a bit tricky, if you, especially with this car, you can easily make mistakes and your car turns quickly left or right. So after I was set for P3, I coasted a little bit around and looked at have enough time to Miguel to the back, and then was set.
And how have you found the tyres this season? Have you found that there's been a major drop-off near the end of these races, or is it quite easy to manage for you guys?
Yeah, with 3.5 for me at the moment, it's quite easy to handle. So it's fine. But I think if you run lower downforce, it might be more tricky.
Well, still, it looks like an absolute blast, Dennis, and it's been great to see you racing this season, and another solid result for you on the podium. Is there anyone you'd like to give a quick thank you to before you go?
Yeah, thank you to the Line GP team, and thanks to Ollie helping me out with some telemetry and let's say engineering for the setup, because unfortunately I had not too much time to train on this track. But and thanks to you guys for broadcasting.
Well, thank you, Dennis. It was an absolute pleasure to speak to you again, and hopefully we'll see you again on our screens very, very soon. But for now, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks for jumping in.
All right, thanks. Have a great evening. Bye-bye, guys.
Cheers.
See you.
There we go. Dennis Verkheim, third place in that race. He'll be happy with that one. And like you said there, Aaron, sometimes it's just nice to have a bit of a lonely race to make your life easier.
Yeah, I think, as you rightfully said a few weeks ago, sometimes, no news is good news, and just having a nice, quiet race for him was enough to snatch that third place away from anyone else that wanted to challenge. We had a few people there challenging, like Yuki Shirakawa, who unfortunately only lasted for 4 corners, but, maybe we might have a few more challenges. I think we got one more, we got time for one more interview, and I am going to go for the home driver himself, Miguel Crespo. Miguel, after your home race, surely having a P5 finish must feel pretty good.
Oh, hey guys, I actually was just talking to the fellas. I didn't expect to get in the interview room, but thank you.
Love it.
Hey, guy. Hey, Ollie, how you going?
Hey, Miguel.
Yeah. Sorry, I was a little bit unexpected. Anyway, I was spewing. I missed the tow with the guys up the road. I sort of got into a couple of collisions at the start, and then I guess that's racing. But I'm happy with 5th, and I'm very thankful that I'm I got 5th anyway. But big thanks to DFR guys, been working on the setup quite a lot, and what can I say?
Well, I mean, always a good result at your home race. A P5 is a pretty good finish, I'd say, here at Phillip Island. It's not the easiest of tracks to navigate around in terms of pure pace, as the gaps between all the drivers here are so marginal that even half a tenth can make such a huge difference. And do you really think you had much more pace today, or did you kind of think you were reaching the limit?
It's hard when you're on your own doing laps around there, because you're sort of trying to be pretty consistent as much as you can. And I think I had the pace, but once you lose the toe, it's gone. Like I'm happy where I'm at anyway, to be honest. I've been out of the car for a while. It's just a busy summer in Australia with work and that, so but I'm happy. Like, my pace was good, but it is what it is, and yeah.
Well, fair. I mean, the fact that you didn't really have much time, it seems to practice in this car and still managed to finish P5, I gotta say, is a pretty impressive result. But before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank at all, or are you just happy with today's race?
I'm happy with today's race, but a really big thanks to DFR, all the Downforce Racing guys, and all the support they've done for me and everyone has been great. So I'm really thankful for them helping me out, and I guess I'm really happy with the result. But I'm a little bit. I wasn't ready for the interview, but anyway, it is what it is. But hi Chaz. I've sent you a few messages in a few weeks ago. Yeah, how you going? Nice to chat with you.
And you, mate?
Thanks. Yeah, pretty good. But thanks everyone for Apex Racing as well. Like it's always a great coverage, and the commentating's great as well. And it's good to see some new commentators in here as well, like Ollie and Taz only does a couple, but Aaron and Samal, well, thanks again. But here to see what happens next season.
Well, I gotta say, it was a real pleasure talking to you, Miguel, and really do hope to see you around for more sometime. Whether we see you in another 3.5 or in another championship, who knows? But that's about all we have time for here today for the 3.5 championship here at Phillip Island, and it's been an absolute pleasure to commentate on this series for you this season. I've had a lot of fun, and I'm sure Chaz and Samuli and Oliver can all say the same, and we've had an absolute joy, especially today. It's been an amazing race, and I hope all of you enjoyed, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.